Why does culture feel so shallow and artificial right now? Why is everything a reference to something older? Why are there so many reboots and remakes and dependency on franchise and IP? I'll tell you why. It's because for too long we went without any solid quality space media. At the times in our history when our media and culture has been the most decadent, the most interesting, the most adventurous, the most curious, and the most needlessly extra in every possible way, what has been there all along to lead the charge? Space movies. Not just one kind of space movies, and frankly not just movies. All kinds of space media. Broody existential space media, sexy French space media, Star Trek, Star Wars, Charlton Heston space movies, and space TV shows for people with taste. My point is that I love sci-fi. The sci-fi genre is one of my absolute favorites, and there are so many different ways to do sci-fi. But right now we're in this gritty, hyper-realist version of sci-fi. I feel like when most people think of sci-fi, they think of something like Black Mirror or Severance, which is great. But I miss the whimsy and the sheer terror of open space. I'm not trying to say that there haven't been modern space movies that are great. Obviously, you have your Blade Runner 2049, you have your Arrival, you have Interstellar, but Interstellar came out in 2014. This is 11 years ago at this point. And I'm not saying that it's been 11 years since we've had a great space movie, but I will say that it does feel like there's been a distinct shift in the tone of the kinds of stories we approach when it comes to sci-fi. And I think that is hugely reflective of the way that our culture has funneled us into less philosophical, ideas about exploration, about humanity and our purpose as individuals and as a collective, and more about our struggles with oppression. I mean, I loved Andor, but Andor is a space series that is very expressly about fighting oppression. Now, the original Star Wars absolutely was as well, but I feel like you still had this kind of whimsical fairy tale element to it that obviously, I love Andor. No criticism of Andor is happening here at all, but it just feels distinctly different. And I feel like you don't have to have this huge, expansive, existential, big picture kind of stuff like 2001: A Space Odyssey. It doesn't have to be cynical or dark like Blade Runner. But I do think that the fact that the stories that we tell are no longer really exploring what mankind is and should be, and is more about just survival, is a pretty dark indicator of where we're at culturally right now. And I really do question the longevity of the cultural impact of this Black Mirror era of sci-fi. I don't mean to shit on Black Mirror because I don't think Black Mirror is a bad show, but I do think that it isn't really curious or imaginative. It is just reflective, which media can be. And I think the purpose of it is intended to show the cracks in our society so as to incite some kind of consciousness in people that we can or should at least want to do something to change it. But people have so limited individual power that it feels like it's actually just doing the job of the bread and circuses to distract us, to gamify and entertain, turn our circumstances into entertainment that we can consume, barely process, and then move on to the next thing. I don't know how significant media like this is going to be perceived in the future, because I don't think that it offers anything culturally, really. But I don't even really think it's the fault of the artists. I think that it is just indicative of the limited cultural expression that we have right now. I think that culturally, we're so isolated and everything is very artificial and curated, and also our literal freedoms are much more limited than they used to be. And I feel like the art that is being made right now in a lot of ways reflects that. However, I will say I did watch the first 2 episodes of Alien Earth and it was pretty good. So I don't know, maybe we'll get a new good space TV show, and it'll be the beginning of a brand new, exciting, culturally curious and expansive era. Although I would credit Andor being the thing to kick it off if that does indeed happen. So